Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar entitled Your Service Desk is Dying. My name is Adam OBrien. I'm the Product Marketing Manager here at SunView Software, and I'll be hosting today's webinar. And today we're lucky enough to have George Spalding, Executive Vice President of Pink Elephant, along with us to give us some insight and some great pointers on how to keep your service desk from flatlining. First of all, I want to get some housekeeping things out of the way. This webinar will be available shortly after its conclusion on our Bright Talk channel. So if you have to leave at early any time during the webinar, you can catch up with that at any point at your convenience. Also, if you find any of the content that George and I covered today to be super relevant or insightful, go ahead and feel free to share this webinar with anyone you would think would gain any insight from the information today, as well as check out the supplemental guide, 25 requirements for our service desk solution that we've attached to this webinar. And finally, if you do have any questions regarding anything that is covered today, go ahead and use the Bright Talk Ask a Question window to submit your question to the webinar panel. We will have some time at the end carved out for a Q&A, and we'll do our best to get to all of those questions. Finally, I want to cover, kind of get some visual representation of both George and myself. Once again, I'm Adam, and I'll be your host. And we also have George Spalding, Executive Vice President for Pink Elephant, who is the co-author of ITIL V3, Continual Service Improvement Core Volumes, as well as he's the winner of the 2012 Ron Munn's Lifetime Achievement Award winner. George, how are you doing today?
I'm just fine, Adam. Great to talk to you.
Great. It's always good to have you on board with us for our webinars here. All right, covering the agenda here so we know what to expect. I'm going to do a quick intro on Your Service Desk is Dying Unless, and that's going to segue into George's 5 ways to optimize your service desk for the digital enterprise. And then that will be followed up in closing by opportunities and next steps, and then followed shortly by a Q&A session at the very end. And before we get things kicked off, I've got a poll question. And that is, what is your service desk's biggest challenge with adapting to the needs of the digital enterprise? Is that going to be A, altering processes to meet new business standards, B, dealing with IoT requests and issues, C, the overall end-user perception of the service desk, or D, we just have way too many tickets and not enough time? And while everyone's doing their votes, I'd also want to make sure that the content we're going to be covering today is going to be considered anywhere between entry level to probably intermediate as far as how advanced and technical we're getting here. So I want to make sure that everyone knows the stuff that we're doing here is going to be great for almost everyone. And if you're a seasoned IT help desk manager, this stuff may be common knowledge to you, and just to let you know. What we'll do is we'll give another couple seconds here to get some more votes in.
All right, we're getting a few votes because people finally figured out they have to click on the vote thing up above, which makes total sense.
All right, we're going to go ahead and stop. Let's check out the results. So it looks like it's the predominant amount of votes go towards the C, the overall end-user perception of the service desk, and followed up by, it looks like, about equal amount of casting for the other 3 options. All right, and before we get kicked off into George's part, I also want to use this kind of as a prequel, if you will. And your service desk is dying unless. Now, I'm sure you've caught the title of the webinar and thought to yourself, well, that's a little presumptuous, Adam. What are you talking about here? Well, the biggest focus of what we want to do today and kind of give that baseline of what to look forward to as the service desk and technology and the needs of its users advance and mature is that we want to make sure that we are meeting the needs of the new workforce. And that's why we're needing our IT situations to change, especially in the age of consumer-like IT services. So I know for myself in particular, I pretty much went down this list right here you see and nailed everything that I do. So we're looking at a couple different profiles of our possible end users. So we go from the tech savvy who considers them pretty much on the up and up with by using tools such as Amazon to get kind of the leverage of feedback and kind of ratings on different technologies and tools for that. And what's that impact on IT? Well, everyone's a tech critic. And everyone seems to know what's best for certain situations, which can, sometimes be a little interesting to deal with. Also, you have consumer tech who are using applications such as Dropbox, and that leads to our IT departments using things like having to deal with shadow IT, where users are using some applications that aren't necessarily sanctioned and on the list of approved applications for organizations. Also, you're dealing with mobile preferences. iPhones, Android phones, tablets, all sorts and shapes of electronic devices. That's leading to our IT departments having to deal with mobile access as well as bring your own devices and figuring out ways to implement or possibly enforce what you can and cannot use when in the workplace. You also find that our end users are going to more of a search first before asking kind of mentality, which things like Google with their algorithms that are getting more and more powerful every day lead to the need and want of self-service and self-support solutions at the front end of things when issues go awry. And then also as collaboration has become a huge thing with applications such as Slack, which I know that we use as our team here. I absolutely love it. It really supports the idea of a collaboration environment with other people. And so you want to have that option to kind of resolve your issues through kind of this group collab efforts. And also, you're always wondering, I get my feedback through Facebook and Yelp through user sentiments. It's no different here in the IT world. So there's got to be a way to capture sentiment and see what our end users are actually dealing with and what they want to see as well as what they're liking. And finally, the ways and days of things such as a cab or something that is bureaucratic and takes steps to get approval are fast approaching its end of life. So in that bureaucratic lanes and tools such as Puppet really help to leverage that kind of DevOps style of development, but not only development in terms of traditionally, but also in just the way and how we live our everyday lives. So, without further ado, that kind of gives you the setup. George, I'm going to have you take away and give us 5 ways to optimize our service desk for the digital enterprise and beyond.
Thanks, Adam. I've got some areas, and in some ways, a couple of things I disagree somewhat, a little teeny bit with what you said, but that's okay, about the cab especially, but I'll get there and we'll talk about it, or maybe that's a whole another webinar on DevOps, but we'll talk about that. Anyway, let's keep going. So, what we've discovered, and this has been very clear, we have now an actual study by HP. It says that instead of contacting the service desk, 54% of workers will seek out pretty much anything else before contacting the service desk. So they'll go to the internet, they'll go to Google, they'll go to the guy sitting next to them, or what I like to call Jason, which is basically a 22-year-old super geek in the department. I suppose they could be called Adam. But the thing is, it's somebody really young, very tech savvy, and not in the IT department because they work in the accounting department, but they're the go-to geek in the accounting department. And then, which kind of becomes like local tech support, or what I call the local wizard, and anybody else that they think of or know or can collaborate with electronically with a collaboration platform. You talked about Slack, and I talked about Yammer and things like that. So the idea is that the go-to solution or incident resolution avenue is not the service desk, and didn't happen overnight, but this has been moving toward this number for years, and it's primarily because the service desk, I believe that the service desk processes and whatnot haven't really changed or adapted to basically the changing customer needs, demands, and expectations. I think it's really that simple. We haven't changed, the customer has, so therefore they're not coming to us anymore. If we were a profit-making business, if the service desk was a profit-making business, our numbers would be down. We'd be sliding. So So collaboration is now, today, is a viable alternative for users. So it's totally viable for them to go out on any collaboration platform and ask their question. Sometimes those collaboration platforms are public. Sometimes they are internal or somehow group focused, where they might be within a little personal group that they've established or that they're a member of, and so that they can collaborate within that group. And what we discover is, in some cases, much to the consternation of the service desk, that some of the responses they get back are very good. They're very bright. They're very sharp. The people who are responding are good and know their stuff and give them cut through the BS. They don't ask, they don't go through a script. They don't go through this. They don't go through that. They just say, I had the same thing happen. Here's what I tried and it worked. Bing, bang, boom. And boom, they discover that. They try it and wham. It worked for them. So now from an IT standpoint, perhaps that's not great, because suddenly we lose a lot of information. We don't just lose the fact that the incident happened. We don't know that. We lose the fact that our resolutions are working or not working. We lose any kind of data and any kind of matching or predictive or proactive stuff that we would like to put in place in the world of IT and incident matching, proactive, problem management, all those fancy words that came about through ITIL. We lose all of that data, because without data we can't do any of that. We can't do incident matching, can't do problem management, period. We certainly can't do proactive problem management, because we never know that these things exist. So the other piece of this is that our response in the world of Service Desk has been to come up with self-service. And that wasn't a bad response. It's not a bad response. And the issue is that, and we believe, and this is a true statement, that the preference of today's users, and we'll get to that in a minute, because today's users are getting younger and younger, but the preference of today's users is self-service. They've grown up doing self-service. They've grown up doing Google. They've grown up going out to a website, downloading drivers, downloading files, and hitting, double-clicking on an exe file or whatever. They have done that. That's their whole life they've been doing that. So this concept of calling the central service desk is in many cases foreign to the younger part, to the millennials in our organization. So, and the part of the reason is when they go to self-service. So let's go back to this collaboration platform. Okay, the real question here is not, is there a collaboration platform? There is. Do they participate in it? They do. So the real question becomes, do we in IT participate in the collaboration platform? Are we online listening to these questions, watching the questions, and are we then proactively providing the answers and providing solutions as someone from the service desk? We're actually listed as someone from the service desk. Are we on that same platform? Because if you look at what our real task is, what our mission is, the service desk, it's productivity. We're in the business of productivity insurance. We want to make sure people stay productive. If someone's down for whatever reason, if they have an incident and they can't do something, then their productivity is down or non-existent. So the idea here is that that's really our mission. So we need to be able to do that. Now, what we find is that a lot of when we talk about this amongst ourselves in IT, we find that what we really want is not to answer this question as a one-off, which is possible, we can do that, but we really like referring people to our self-service portal, and so that they not only can get the answer that's already prescribed, already written, already in beautiful, hopefully, form, but that others might be reading the same post, and others can go to that same self-service portal without doing more collaboration and be more productive. So given that everything I said is just true, whether it is or not, given that it is, here's the dilemma. Most of our self-service portals are self-service articles, knowledge-based articles, written articles in PDF form with very little graphics and certainly almost no video or screencast. Well, this is boring. Let's get this down. It's boring. It's boring for me. It's certainly boring for the millennials. It doesn't hold their attention. It doesn't make them say, this is the source. This is the place I'm going to come to for all answers in the future. It's just one of many. There's no loyalty here. Okay. So we have a millennial workforce today. Now, I've seen various studies, and, we can sit around and argue about whether it's true or not. But basically, without getting too hung up on the details and statistics, half of our existing workforce today are millennials, starting at, age 18 up to around 33. So these are people who've grown up with technology their whole life. The Internet's been around. The World Wide Web's been around since 95. Okay, it's now 2016. That's 21 years. So even if I'm 33, okay, when I was 8, which is, perhaps the oldest person we're talking about in the millennial category, there was a World Wide Web. There was ubiquitous email. There was, not texting quite yet, but getting there. And by the time I was 12 and by the time I was, in my teens, there were smartphones and at least Blackberries, etc. So the point is that this group of people, these millennials, and this 50%, by the way, is on the way up because the baby boomer generation, of which I am one, is on the way down. We're retiring 10,000 baby boomers a day in the United States. 10,000 baby boomers a day. And this is going to continue through 2020 at least. So who's replacing all those people? Well, the people are moving up from the Gen X generation and the millennials, the Gen Y generation. They're just filling in the bottom. Except for the few geniuses who are starting their own company and becoming billionaires in 3 years. So these are people who are young, they are energetic, they are active, they are social, they do social media as just part of their normal life. They do Facebook, they do Twitter, they do Instagram, they do it all. They do it, it's normal, it's no big deal for them, it's just part of what they are, part of what they do. They believe they're tech savvy. The truth is, they're tech savvy in terms of consumer tech, so they can whisk through a smartphone or a tablet, and they know exactly what to do once they're connected to the network. If I ask one of them what the network is or how the network works, they haven't the slightest idea. I had a good time with my 17-year-old grandson the other day, and I said to him, he said, blah, 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 blah. He's super smart. And I said, so where is the cloud? The iCloud, where is that? And he was like, it's in the cloud. I said, no, it's in an Apple data center. The first one was in North Carolina. Anyway, but it was fun to see that they haven't the slightest clue of what's going on. They don't even know what a cloud is, which is fine. I have no problem. But they have an expectation that everything will work, that they have an expectation that they'll be connected 24/7. They have an expectation that it will work and work well and be fast, and they value their time. They are completely disloyal in terms of trying to stick with one thing. If it doesn't work, they'll go to another. Bam, 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 bam. And that's our workforce. That's the people we're dealing with in terms of the service desk and customers for the service desk. So the concept, if we on the service desk aren't into social media, if we don't have a Twitter account on the service desk, if we don't have a Facebook page, if we don't know how to do this and aren't on it all the time and aren't monitoring these various channels, then we're out. We're as dorky as, what most of these 20-year-olds think of their grandparents. Because they're different. Their collaboration platforms are absolutely the normal. Social media is their service desk tool. They simply go on social media and ask and talk about what we would call an incident. They talk about an incident. I can't do this on my machine. I'm trying to do this on my machine. I can't do it. Anybody got any ideas? That's a normal way for them to be. And they do this without even thinking. It's really fun to watch sometimes. If when you're in a house with multiple generations, it's really fun to ask, so what movies are showing at the local cinema and what times are the movies? Ask that question and see who reaches for what source of information. Obviously, the kid will immediately go for the phone. Maybe their parents will go for the phone or the tablet. Maybe grandma and grandpa will look for the newspaper. I mean, it's really interesting to see where the go-to knee-jerk reaction is in terms of getting that. So I believe that a self-service portal today has to be a media provider, that we basically need to be doing videos and screencasts of how to solve things so that they can sit there watching a screencast. While watching it, they are doing it, hitting pause and then doing what the previous step was. And we have to set these up so that you can actually do that. Step 1, do this, pause, do that. Step 2, do this. Pause, do that. So that it's basically a video that's kind of meant to be paused between and clearly states step 1, step 2, step 3 in the video. But that's the kind of thing where they will come back. They'll come back for another video and another solution, another solution. If we don't do that, we're ruling ourselves out of their consciousness, out of their preference. We don't exist. And all solutions are instantly mobile enabled, no question about it. That's not even a discussion. Does the service desk need a desk? So we talked about mobile enabling a solution, and we tend to think of mobile in the world of client solution, which is what I have here. But what about mobile in terms of a provider solution? So why isn't the service desk mobile? Do we really need a central physical service desk where we sit with a desktop computer and a large monitor, and we sit in front of it and we do things there, and we take calls or do chat and whatnot from there? Is that really what the service desk is today? You know, ITIL's always viewed the service desk as a function, not a process. So what that meant was, whatever the service desk is today, it has a mission, and it's basically to make sure the users are productive. Get it fixed as quickly as possible and get the user back up and running. That is the goal of incident management. The real purpose of the service desk is communication between IT and the end user community. That's it. So it's communication, and incident management then becomes getting them up and running as fast as possible. Not getting to the root cause of the problem and fixing it permanently. That's not the job of the service desk. Never has been. That's the job of problem management. So this is all about short-term fix, Band-Aids, get them up and running, basically put a Band-Aid on their knee and pat them on the butt and get them back in the game. That's basically what the service desk and incident management's about. It's not about fixing it for good. It's not about being a geek. It's about getting them up and running. So, and there's no reason with today's tools in 2016 that we shouldn't have absolutely full functionality on the road with whatever device we're using, whether it's a tablet or whether it's a smartphone. Obviously, there's a physical space limitation on a smartphone, and you can only get the type so small before it becomes nuts. But the point is that there's nothing stopping us from being fully mobile enabled on the road. And that should lead us to perhaps a new reality in the world of service desk. That means that a service desk analyst can be out amongst the people. So they're fixing things with their tablet and responding to things with their tablet. They can talk to them via Skype or via some sort of network if it's a tablet, or via the phone. And they can also be there physically on site, solving issues as well, and entering them into the incident database so that we have the data. So that all of that can be done mobily. The question then gets back to the headline here. Does the service desk really need a desk? And I think that's a decent question for people to ask, because I truly believe that today they don't. And maybe that will save us some money. Maybe it won't. But it makes more sense. It makes us more of a service desk because we're providing more service and we're visible. And we obviously provide a valuable service to people because we're right there. At the same time, we're online. At the same time, we're responding to collaborations and tweets. We're doing all of this at once, this multitasking part of it. There's no reason why it has to be the way it used to be. The Internet of Things changes the service desk role. So we all know, hopefully, what the Internet of Things is. It's basically stuff, anything literally, that will be connected to a network, whether it's wired or wireless, and has a brain of some kind, so it has some sort of intelligence built into the device. And usually the intelligence in the device is going to tell us something about the device, and it's going to, at least in the near term, is going to help us understand whether the device is working or not. So let's take a couple of really quick examples, one from business and then a couple from an office environment. So in the Internet of Things, we should be able to know that the projector in the conference room or in conference room 12 is working. We should be able to know that by looking at online information. So the projector itself will have enough intelligence to tell you how many hours the bulb has been used, to tell you how many hours it estimates the bulb is left, to tell you that through a self-diagnostic that everything seems to be working just fine and that it is ready to go. And we know that because we've polled it and we've asked it. Printers. We can get a real clear understanding by polling, by pinging a printer as to where it is in terms of paper, where it is in terms of toner. We should be able to see that remotely. We should be able to understand that. And if the printer is having some sort of issue, runs out of toner, runs out of paper, whatever, we should instantly get an alert. In the same way we've been getting alerts on routers and servers and things like that for years, we should be able to get an alert on printers and projectors and things like that. Imagine in the old world, imagine a pop machine, a vending machine that sells pop. Okay, so a vending machine that sells pops. Well, in the old world, the way the vending machine worked was, they put a big vending machine in, they plugged it in the wall and filled it with pop. Then, on Thursday every week, a guy comes with a truck and walks in with a big two-wheel dolly filled with pop and fills all of the empty slots with the allotted pop, and then makes a note of how much he put in, collects the money, and then goes back to the truck and reloads it back in. Okay, well, what if the office in that particular case was closed for the week for a vacation and absolutely no one had bought any pop? Well, the guy still came on Thursday, and the guy, did realize that nobody bought any pop and turned around and left. Okay, well, why can't the pop machine know how much pop it has and how much pop it sold, and then tell online, perhaps through a wireless or cellular connection, tell the pop company what it needs? You can tell exactly what it needs brought in, and it can tell whether the guy needs to even stop there, so that the route of the pop delivery guy isn't preset. It's set on a daily basis based on the needs of given machines in given places. So it makes complete sense. It's much more efficient. Everybody still gets plenty of pop whenever they want it, but it's much more efficient and costs less money, increases profits for the soda pop company. So this Internet of Things is going to change our role, because we're the ones, basically, who are going to be, in many cases, polling and tracking those physical assets. And we're going to be getting real-time assets, real-time information for those assets, because our job is productivity. So therefore, we want to be proactive for productivity. So we're going to set some thresholds, probably, on those different areas, the printers and the projectors and whatever might come in the future. And we're going to set thresholds where we want some sort of an alert. And when we get that alert, hopefully we will proactively take action and resolve the fact that the bulb is probably going to burn out on the projector, or that the printer is going to run out of ink, or whatever. We're going to do that before it happens, and we're going to keep the office productive, because the cost of allowing the printer to run out, especially if we don't have any extra toner, that's even worse. But the cost of that in terms of productivity for the office is way, way, way higher than perhaps changing the toner cartridge a few days earlier than having it run out. So it's going to enable us to do proactive problem management. It's going to enable us to do incident avoidance, which is kind of what I was just talking about. We're going to be able to get up-to-the-minute status on all of these devices. And last but not least, what's the ROI of the service desk? So right now we have specific tasks at the service desk level that are assigned to the service desk, and that it's going to take a number of the service desk staff to perform that assigned task at the level that we've basically promised to perform that task at. We call that a service level, and we usually document it with something called a service level agreement. So we establish services that we provide, then we establish levels of service, and then we promise the business and the customers that we're going to perform the service at that level. Well, as we get more mature, incident management and request fulfillment, it's really only the beginning, because incident management is basically reactive. Request fulfillment is reactive. No question about that. We're waiting for, whether it's a human being, the customer themselves, to call them, send an email, and engage a chat that says, I have an issue, I am non-productive because of this, because of this, because of this. So what you're looking for in the world of technology, and what's really exciting for me, is to see the amazing advancements in the tool sector, in the vendor sector, for how much they are enabling, first of all, integration with other processes besides service desk, change management, configuration management, release management, problem management. All of that stuff becomes, and service levels become integrated together. That's fabulous stuff, so that we can turn this into a truly proactive and productivity enhancing service desk. That's what we're really looking for in the future. And at Pink, we often get asked the big question, which is, should I choose a tool for best of breed, or should I choose a tool for integration? Our answer is always the same. Go for integration. Best of breed, there may be, a specific module on this tool that's better than the others, and a specific module on this other tool that's better. But really, what you're really looking for the long haul is integration among all the different processes, so that they can be tied together, and so that we can move things using the tool, move them through the process very quickly, very efficiently, and in the end, proactively. So if the only goal of the service desk is incident resolution, they will become irrelevant as maturity increases, because we're going to cut down on the number of incidents. In other words, if we really institute problem management and do it right, incident management, do it right, problem management, do it right, the number of incidents goes down, period. There's no question about that. We are more available, more stable, more reliable, all the good stuff. But the actual number of incidents goes down, first call resolution goes down, all the fancy metrics that we use go down, because we're more mature and because we've done our job well. We've done it right. So the real ROI of the service desk comes from increasing productivity for the enterprise. I think I've talked enough, so I'm going to turn it back over to Adam now.
Thanks, George. All great stuff. And what I'm going to do to follow up with that is, in regards to some opportunities and next steps that we could take to really get our service desk up to speed and kind of future-proof it for the long haul when looking at the digital enterprise. And one of my favorite things when thinking about this as a whole is this great quote from Gardner. That 71% of IT organizations believe that the perception of IT is dependent on the service desk. And a lot of that stems from that the service desk is the first point of contact for most organizations and their IT departments. So with keeping that in mind, we've got a service desk for a new generation of users. So if you're looking at your service desk, there's a couple of very key points that I want to make sure to highlight, and you keep in mind when considering future-proofing yourself, if you will. So that first one is you really want to start looking for that consumer-like interface. No one wants to use an interface that looks like a clone of Windows ME or anything of that sort. What you want to do is give your end users and the service desk interface that not only would you think they would want, but also that you would want to use, which means simplifying a way to get around what they need to find and when they need to find it, all within a few clicks, if not immediately at the fingertips. Also, you want to make sure it's a user-centric service delivery. Don't continue to settle for a platform that requires users to jump through hoops to get status updates or even submit a ticket. Automated notifications and updates are also key into making sure that that is a complete package and gets you set up. Also, make sure your service desk supports mobile, and that could be anywhere from the service requester or anything of that front-end portal. But if you're like me, you're on the go nonstop, and you don't stop until well after the sun is set, whether that be working or doing miscellaneous things, probably usually from my iPhone. So have the ability to have something that scales properly and allows your end users to use their mobile devices wherever they may be at any point, and really open up those channels and avenues for them to quickly and easily access you for help. And finally, you want to capture feedback you can't know where you're at as far as we're doing something great with your team, or if you're finding something needs to be maybe pumped up or reassessed as far as the processes you're taking without being able to capture the sentiments and feedback from your end users. So having that ability, whether it be through surveys, and that could be long or short, it depends, whatever your organization feels like you need, but having any kind of sentiment capture is something that I would highly recommend taking a look at and thinking about.
The like button.
And then to kind of wrap all that up in another great quote that I grabbed from one of our blogs that we just put out this last week, it's ironing out the kinks in a service desk appearance and functionality keeps users communicating through a single channel rather than seeking out alternatives. There's nothing more frustrating than the time I spent as a service desk manager in the past than having to manage multiple channels and multiple probably applications, honestly, and the way people were submitting their requests for help and for issue resolution. So by providing that front end that everyone loves, you're going to keep them coming back to the same place and not even think about venturing out to other channels or ways to submit their issues.
One interruption there, Adam. Sorry to interrupt, but one of the other studies that I've seen recently was the fact that, on average, a service desk analyst uses 5 different applications before solving most incidents, which is amazing. That's just amazing.
Quite a bit of juggling.
Yep, exactly.
And then finally, we're looking at some next steps. The key and the end game being we want to improve employee engagement as well, and we want to be more agile in all of our processes. And this is only going to help us in the long run. So first off, get the right service desk solution for your team. Make sure that if you are currently looking for a new platform, that it fits your business needs now, but also provides the ability to grow into your IT maturity as you progress along as an organization. And it has the ability maybe to add in certain features as you go and as you need them. That way you're maximizing your investment and not overpaying for something that you will not need in the near future or may never need. You also want to implement service request processes for common requests. Having the ability to create a template or a macro for your service desk team to utilize for common issues will not only save your team time, but also provide a speedy and verified steps to resolution outlined for your end users, which if you've ever been in the end user case, doing something even as simple as a password reset can get drawn out if you don't have those kind of processes in place. I know one of the things that I set up immediately for our team was, automations where we notified our users with actually a full-on knowledge base article when they submitted requests, pertaining around simple functions like password requests or resets, as well as, what's my user login information. So the more you can do that, the better. Also, you want to leverage automations to streamline request incident handling. A lot of times, great service desk platform will allow you to set up automations that look for either specific problem codes or specific users, and then route those requests accordingly, maybe to specific higher-level team members or to specific, automatic upgrade to a problem ticket. You can also use automations to notify end users. Say if an issue is known and there's multiple instances and it's been upgraded to a problem, you can set up automated notifications to go out to update them when something on the ticket has been updated and eventually once things have been resolved. Also, you want to improve self-service experience with user-centric design. And I touched on this just a bit ago, but I cannot express how important this is to make sure that your interface is not only responsive and easy to use, but also plays well within the mobile airspace. So you want to have something that's responsive to not only desktop browsers, but also something that can be easily used on your iPhone or any mobile device when you're on the road or on the run. And finally, one of my big things that I've always loved way more than the rest is take advantage of your knowledge management to reduce time to resolution and also provide point of request help. And so with this, back in the day when I was running that service desk, we made a very huge and concerted effort to really build our knowledge base. And we did this because we found that we were spending too much time on tickets that came in that were really honestly very easily solvable. I know a lot of companies end up dealing with password requests, like crazy. So that's just a great example of something that can be done quite easily. So you submit a ticket and you have automations that maybe take over and automatically send back a knowledge-based article that walks the customers or your end users through step-by-step how to do that. And then at that point, the issue is not resolved and they can further reach out for help. But that knowledge management only provides quick and easy resolutions with step-by-step instructions, but also can provide things of known issues. George mentioned video walkthroughs earlier. Those are all great things you can leverage the knowledge base for. And with all of that in mind, I did a webinar a few months ago regarding kind of the costs that dug really into the costs of incidents versus problems and all of that. And the one thing I found that is completely applicable, I think, to what we've covered today is this kind of chart. And I grabbed this. MetricNet did a great kind of base of cost for service desk tickets and operation, and this one stuck out the most. And what I really want to focus on is on that left-hand side. So incident prevention is obviously the best way to go. That is free. But the next step up is a self-help or a tier 0 ticket. That costs on average $2 to your help desk. And you see quite a huge jump going from just that self-help to a service desk ticket, so a $20 difference. And if you think about you're getting on average 10 to 20, say, password resets a day, that's a lot of money that could be potentially stopped and saved by just the leverage of self-help articles and knowledge-based articles with that. And so finally, I know here at ChangeGear, we've taken all of that kind of stuff into account and worked really hard to get together something that we feel fits the need for not only the current today's IT organization, but looking forward and really embracing the digital enterprise and moving forward. And then one of the couple big things that we have within that service desk offering is we really want to make it apparent that we still are using ITIL-based processes. That way you can know that you get the ITIL-based goodness as well as adapt those to your business needs. You also code this configuration so you can configure the UI as well as the interface without code, and that makes things easy and to customize to fit your organization and individuals' needs. You also have persona-based dashboards that allow all the users to really set up the dashboards to see the specific metrics that they need to see on a day-to-day basis to really help their workflow and get their job done. And as well as powerful automations, as we had mentioned earlier, the importance of that. You can set up direct automations to help your team escalate tickets, respond to customers, or help to resolve tickets in a quicker fashion. And finally, that responsive design within the self-service portal is huge. And I think we mentioned that multiple times, but the ability to take that service desk and self-service portal on the road with you no matter where you go allows your end users to quickly and easily access you for not only help and tickets requests, but also knowledge-based articles. And so that finally leads us to the end of today. But as always, I'm always open to learning more from anyone who's experienced or may have different point of views or anything to chime in. So by all means, feel free to reach out by either on Twitter. You can tweet to me at the Adam OBrien, to the SunView Software channel at SunView Software, or Pink Elephant is at the ITIL Experts, and we'll be more than happy to answer or discuss any kind of the points that we covered today, as well as feel free to reach out by email to myself at aobrien@sunviewsoftware.com. And that leads us into finally Q&A. I know we do have a few questions that popped up. I think I have a few good here. George, this might be one good one for you. What are the biggest challenges the service desk needs to overcome in order to effectively accommodate the IoT or Internet of Things?
Well, I think that's going to be a growing trend. So I think that, first of all, the real question, one of the questions comes up pretty quickly is, am I using an incident management tracking system, or what we used to call a ticketing system? If I'm just using an incident management ticketing system, and then let's throw another one in. Am I using request fulfillment? Am I doing request fulfillment in that? And am I separating those two things, incidents versus requests? I think that those are big deals in terms of the actual system. Then the next discussion we would have to have is, Do I have access to the configuration management database and some sort of configuration management for devices? Right now, that configuration management might be servers or desktops and things of that nature, basically computers, or phones or tablets, depending on how in-depth we want to go. Because the only real way we're going to get access to the information around the IoT is going to be having it be entered and having it be part of a configuration management database of some kind. Now, it's possible that we don't want to have the access to the desktops and all those things, but we actually want some sort of configuration of the IoT devices. And of course, if you're using devices that are a few years old, they don't have intelligence built in. Most of the printers that you would buy today do. Many of the projectors are starting to have that. Cars are starting to have that. I mean, all of those things that we have in our office that we buy, that we've thought of as electronic devices in the past, are starting to have intelligence. So the next question is, are they connected to a network? Well, when we sit around and think about a projector being connected to a network, most of us would say, no, it's not. Well, then we can't deal with it. It either has to be physically connected or wirelessly connected to a network so that we have access to it and we can talk to it. Now, in most cases, I doubt that the fixes that we can implement are actually going to be able to be done remotely. But it might be possible, believe it or not, to reboot a printer or to reboot a projector remotely. It's not impossible to imagine. And if we believe that that would solve the problem, whatever it might be. And we might be able to do that on a regular basis even before we proactively, before a meeting starts or before the beginning of the day or at lunchtime or whatever. So we have to start understanding what the IoT is, what devices are going to actually be there. And depending on your business, IoT could also be robotics. It could be robots that are involved in manufacturing. That's all IoT as well. And then we're now on a network. We now all have brains. They're all reporting back. All of that becomes electronic things as well. So in the manufacturing world, there could be a ton of IoT-type devices. In the office world, it's a bit less. Though I'm sitting here looking at my desk and I have a telephone on my desk, an office telephone, with buttons and stuff. Well, that could be an IoT device. It's actually the phone system, the PBX switch, is obviously run by a computer. It's run by a laptop in our office. But the actual devices they could be IoT as well. So all of this stuff that's either out there right now or that's going to be out there and it's going to be upgraded over time, we're going to need to know about if we're going to take some responsibility at the service desk. We always want the service desk to be the first call. We want it to be the single point of contact, as you were talking about in terms of the Gartner quote. So given that we're the single point of contact, first point of contact, we want to be able to do that. So it looks like we have about 2 minutes left, Adam.
Yeah, I've got time. I think I've got one other question. Actually, I can handle. I've got some good experience and background on this. It says, we currently don't have an extensive knowledge-based article library. What's the best way to start down that road? And I'd have to say the number one thing is to make sure you get team buy-in. So your help desk team is on the front lines, and they're the ones dealing with issues and incidents and problems on a day-in and day-out basis. So if we can get buy-in from your team and start kind of coming together and collaborate and say, hey, these are the big issues that we think would really benefit well from having some KB articles. And the ability to promote those set issues or tickets to a knowledge-based article format is extremely beneficial as well, as that's just one more way that an automation can take you into the next level and kind of get you situated. So that is a great thing that I recommend is team buy-in and then the ability to easily promote tickets to KB articles. And then finally, George, I'm coming back. I think we got a minute here. And so regarding the good old cab thing, cabs are always going to be great, and I'm sure you could agree with me. But as we progress, we're finding more and more DevOps teams from our side that we talk to the organizations are using kind of this peer-to-peer review for the smaller and the more automated approvals, while CAB is being used for the big high-level ones. Would you agree that would be the way to go?
I agree basically, especially in the DevOps Agile world, that the CAB really becomes a very different animal and becomes perhaps peer-to-peer review or a daily CAB meeting at least.